Hello and welcome. This is Linda and you're at A Taste of Books. Today I'm going to be doing the BookTube Newbie Tag, and I've got 7 questions here picked out to answer. I hope this will help you to get to know me more and what my channel might offer you. Let's start out with question number 1. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? Well, as I have been a BookTube watcher for a long time, I noticed that we have a whole lot of the same age group, and we have a whole lot of people reviewing and reading basically a pool of the same books. And so sometimes it gets repetitive when I visit these different channels and I'm looking at the same books all the time. So what I want to do is I want to bring different books, unknown authors, things that you might not think about, run across, or even know exist. And I'd like to highlight some of these. Now, from time to time, I might be doing some of the trending books, but basically I want to do something new, offer you something you won't see on other channels. I like to do armchair traveling. And so with some of my books, the setting, where that's at, I'd like to also offer some information on those settings, where they're at in the world and what's going on there and why you might want to be there one day, things like that. Also, I like to pair food and recipes with certain books that have those elements in them. And I like the adventure of that because you can learn so much more from that. The other thing is that I'm an older booktuber, so my perspective is going to be different. Where I come from, what I've read over 6 decades, has a lot to do with how I perceive books and stories today. And it's going to be a lot different than the younger generation. It doesn't make it any better because each perspective is unique and interesting. It's just a little different than you might find on other channels. Now, question number 2 is, why do you love to read? Well, I could have a list all day on this one because, first of all, I think reading is a privilege. If we grew up in a place where we were educated and we learned to read, then that is a real plus for us, because not everyone in the world gets that opportunity. And if you've ever met anyone who can't read, you would realize the limitations on that, on their life. And so I think it's a privilege. The other thing is I love books because books have personalities. They take on a life of their own. And because of that, many books that I've read decades ago are still in my mind and my heart. They're longtime friends, and I think about them often. So I like to read because of that. Also, I find that in books, in dialogue, in setting, in plot, in characterization, there's often areas that fit our life exactly. And somehow they manage to say or do what we can't express or even think about doing. And it helps us to clear our own perspective and gives us a definition sometimes of who we are in retrospect to who we're reading about. It's really amazing how that happens and how true to form it is sometimes. Also, I love to read because reading teaches us about things. It tells us about how other people are raised, what situations they live in, what issues they have to contend with. And it helps us to understand people. It teaches us about society today. And it might teach us history. It might teach us science. It might teach us sci-fi, the things ahead of us, things like that. But whatever, it's a wonderful reason to read. And of course, the travel element in books is wonderful too. Now, question number 3 is, what book or series got you into reading? I'll never forget this question kind of goes with the next question, which is, when did you start reading? Well, I read as soon as I could read. The Jane and Dick primer readers that when I went to school, and the Spot the dog. From that point on, I always read. But around the age of 15, I seriously took reading as a passion. And so I started with the classics and so forth. But the book that really sold me on reading was a book called Saratoga Trunk. And it was written by Edna Ferber. As soon as I finished that book, I went and read another one of her books called Showboat. And then after that, another one called Giant. And then there were other books of hers. But those first three books really set the pattern for me to be a reader and to love to read. And those three books, by the way, were all made into movies. So if you like to watch older movies, you might try Saratoga Trunk, Showboat, and Giant. Where do you like to read? That's question number 5. Actually, at my age, anywhere that's comfortable. I'll read anywhere. But in good weather, I've always enjoyed reading outside. I could read on my patio. I could go to the park. Just outside, just lent a whole realm of relaxation and layered it right into the reading that I was doing. So I always loved that. Now, in bad weather, I often loved going to my Books A Million store here where I live and getting me a hot chai latte, sitting down at the table and read. And I could spend 1, 2, 3, 4 hours doing that. And I just loved it. And people coming and going never distracted me, but the whole element, the whole environment of just being surrounded by books and people who loved books. I just love reading there. Another place that I read often was a coffee shop. And I wouldn't spend a long time there, maybe 30, 45 minutes, but I could grab a coffee, sit in the corner, and read quietly, and I enjoyed that too. Different places in my home, different rooms at times, a lot of times depending on the lighting that's coming through the windows and things like that, or if there's activity in another room that's distracting me, I'll change rooms. But like I said, anywhere that's comfortable, if I've got a book I can read. What kind of books do you like to read is question number 6. I love fiction, a lot of genres of fiction. I like sci-fi, I like historicals, I like mysteries, I like different categories of romance. I love nonfiction. I love to read books about travel. I like memoirs. I like to read cookbooks or books about food. And I love to read children's books also. And primarily I like to read those because I'm always looking for books to recommend or gift to my great-granddaughters who love to read. And so today there are so many questionable topics in books and things that I personally wouldn't want to recommend to my grandchildren, but so I like to read them first and see how that goes. And often that's what I'll be reading in a bookstore, going through the children's section, reading books of their age group. And my great-granddaughters are 8 to 12. There's 3 of them, and they just love to read. And so I like to kind of go through some of those books and get the best choices for them. Question number 7, the last question, is what does your book collection look like? Well, as you can see right now, I have a few books lined up here that I'm going to be reading in February and doing reviews on. And but recently, my husband and I, we moved from a home we have been living in for 40 years. And of necessity, my book collection, what I had left of it, needed to go because we moved to an apartment. and we just have room for it. But over the years, anyway, I never let my book collection get too big, because there came a point when I looked at those shelves of books and I thought, what good are they doing on my shelf? I've read them, I've enjoyed them. I am not a person who rereads books very often. So I thought they're gathering dust. Who are they impressing? Why are they there? And so I decided I'm going to start passing these books on and let other people enjoy them. So I did start taking some to the my little library stands around my city and sharing them there. I also began taking them to assisted living centers and nursing homes that had libraries for their clients. And they were very welcomed in these places. And the people residing there, a lot of them were readers. And so they really enjoyed a supply of books that could be placed free of charge in their library for them to read. So that's what I do with my book collection now, and books that are sent to me by authors and publishers to review. These books get passed on. I don't let them just sit on the shelf. If I enjoyed reading them, I know someone else will enjoy reading them. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to the answers of these questions and gotten to know me a little better, and that you'll know kind of what to expect when you visit A Taste of Books. And I hope you'll come often. And if you do like what I'm talking about and how I'm sharing books with you, then please subscribe. And so until next time, this is Linda at A Taste of Books.